So, in the next chapter in Deleuze's Logic of Sense, we move on to the 10th series of the ideal game. And in this chapter, what will happen is that Deleuze will turn to a kind of game metaphor in which he will say that his ideal game is basically, he'll go back to the earlier distinction that he made between Chronos and Ion and see them basically as two separate gaming tables as a manifestation of one single giant ideal game, with the ideal player being Ion itself. And we'll see how that works out in a second. But he starts off first by pointing out Lewis Carroll, the way Carroll portrays games is not the way that we are normally used to seeing them function. For example, the croquet game where he has, for mallets, the players have flamingos, and for balls they have hedgehogs, or the caucus race in which one can simply begin anytime one wants and stop anytime one wants. They appear to be games without rules, games without objectives, games without winners or losers. They are in no sense exemplary of games as we normally come to understand them. And so Deleuze says, what then are the conditions of those normal games that we normally encounter when we think of games? And he says there are four of them. The one is that there is always a set of rules, a defined, distinct set of rules that pre-exists the game that we play. And number two, that set of rules determines and apportions chance. The way that it unfolds in that game, whether it's a game of skill or a game of chance, doesn't matter. The rules are designed to apportion the unfolding of chance and to give it specific limitations. Three, there are always a certain number of throws, whether there's only one throw or not. It doesn't matter. There's always a certain specific number of throws. And then fourth, finally, there's always a winner or a loser. But now he says then, so all games more or less have these four functions, but he says, suppose we went and we undid these four functions to try to construct a sort of pure or ideal game or an anti-game. And he said, first of all, suppose we had a game with no rules. No rules, none whatsoever. Secondly, that instead of apportioning chance, chance was infinitely ramified through the system. And there was no way to apportion it or delimit it, but it was infinite throughout the system. And thirdly, that there is no numerical number of throws, but the throws, though they're qualitatively different, they're not numerically different. And it's as though each throw generates its own set of rules for every throw, because each throw corresponds to the distribution of points that make up a fresh singularity. And we saw last time that singularities are events, and events are, of course, unprecedented. So in a game without rules, we would have each throw making its own rules, as it were. And then fourth and finally, there are no winners or losers in such a game. Now he says, now this kind of a game is of course not a real game at all. It's an ideal game, and neither man nor God could play it. It wouldn't interest either one. But it can exist as an object of thought in the mind, as a kind of nonsensical object, which is exactly how he intends it to be understood. And it's also a kind of mirror, he says, for human thought, the way that human thought, specifically philosophical human thought, works, and also the way artists proceed. Artists create works of art. They don't conform to any rules, and they make up their own rules, and each work of art is a singularity unto itself that creates its own rules, especially nowadays in contemporary art, where there's a complete disdain for any kind of manifestos or rules whatsoever. And so this kind of ideal game is something that is more that we would find in the role of the philosopher or the artist, who exists outside these game systems, who exist outside them because they create the rules of the systems. And then he says then, so suppose we were to then further set this aside for a moment and then imagine, he quotes Borges, and Borges' comment on the Babylonian lottery, in which chance is infinitely ramified through it instead of limited. And he says, let's imagine that we threw some dice on a table, and that instead of letting the dice unfold, one leaned over and blew on them to give them an extra blow of chance and contingency. Of course, that would be a violation of the rules of the game, and one would be escorted out of the casino or exiled from the game. But cosmologically, that would indicate the infusion of another element of chance into a system, a cosmos with its own laws and rules. But suppose that were infinitely ramified, as Borges says in his commentary on the Babylonian lottery, in which there isn't just a chance determining one single outcome, but the chance ramified infinitely throughout the system. What is this infinite divisibility, this divisibility of time that's infinite? He says basically this goes back to the earlier distinction that he had made at the start of the book between the Stoic distinction between two cosmological principles, chronos on the one hand and aion on the other. Chronos was proper to the realm of causes, states of affairs between bodies governed by the law of causality. And aion, on the other hand, was the realm that was proper to surface events, surface effects, not causes. The Stoics disjoined effects from their initial causes. And then we have a realm of pure events, pure surface effects. So that is the distinction. And then he says, really, this is also a distinction between two different types of temporality, because in the one case, in the case of chronological temporality, we have an emphasis on the present. There is always the present, with a past behind it and the future in front of it, but the emphasis is most decidedly upon the present in the chronological theory. And the present is infinitely returnable. It's governed by the myth of the eternal return. The cosmos is constantly recycling and bringing all the presents back to a reset button, basically. They constantly restart. So it's infinite in that sense, whereas the aion is infinite in a very different sense. It's not infinite, it's unlimited, and it proceeds along a straight line that is infinitely subdividable, in which the present is effaced because it's infinitely entangled and divided up with future and past, into which it's been infinitely chopped up. And so events are always realized in chronos. They're always realized in the realm of the accidental, the realm of the contingent, the realm of causes, the realm of things that happen to bodies and befall people, whereas the realm of events is Deleuze's privileged realm, in which he's more or less incarnating the Platonic ideas as essences. In the realm of events, things have always already happened or are just about to happen, have not yet happened. They're never in process of actualizing. So the actual present in process of actualizing is the realm of chronos, of chronological time, whereas the realm of effects, things which are about to happen and which have always already happened, is the realm of aion, which is infinitely divisible along a sort of single straight line. And he says that Borges invokes another kind of labyrinth, one that's even more horrific than the twisting and turning kind. It's a labyrinth of the infinite straight line that never ends. And so this is the distinction between the two. And he says that the thing about aion then is that aion is the ideal player of this ideal game, whose rules rupture all the normal rules of the game that he had talked about at the beginning of the chapter. So we've moved then from game theory to a cosmological image in which we have this idea of aion as the ideal player of the game. And he says, imagine then two gaming tables that are side by side, and on the one table is chronos, the realm of states of affairs, and the other is the table of propositions, or surface effects, and the border between them is aion. The border between them, just a sense, is the border between propositions and attributes of bodies, between things we can say, denotations and sense, versus the things that happen to bodies. Aion is that border that connects the two gaming tables and infinitely ramifies chance, so that the two worlds are infinitely interpenetrated, these two gaming tables that are right up against each other, in this ideal game in which there are no rules, no winners and losers, and chance is infinite, and it's unregulated, basically. And so this is the image that he wants to convey in this chapter of his philosophy of sense as a kind of ideal game, a Lewis Carrollian type of ideal game. He says this is implicit in Carroll's text too. He always has this ideal of a kind of ideal game or an anti-game that does not obey any of the traditional rules. So we have the two gaming tables, chronos, aeon, the world of contingent events, and the cosmic cyclicity of eternal return on the one hand, states of affairs and bodies and attributes of bodies, versus the realm of events, effects, and propositions about bodies, in which time is infinitely divisible, the realm of aion, in which the present is not the emphasis, it's simply the realm of effects, the a priori and a posteriori realms taken together and essentialized. And that gives you Deleuze's cosmology for this chapter.